everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have been trying to make my eyes look more open, so I put like white on here, and now I realize it kind of looks silly. So, adventures in trying to make my makeup look better because I'm so tired. Anybody else feel like you're just kind of glued to Facebook comments and the screen and everything else? I think we all kind of need a break, but I definitely feel like I am so tired of looking at a screen lately. I just feel like maybe I need to step away. Oh my gosh. So I apologize if my my makeup looks kind of crazy. You never know what it's going to look like until you actually get on screen. But anyway, welcome, welcome. Today, what we're going to do is we are going to kind of chat a little bit. I am going to read a scene, and this is how my day is going today, is that I just went to go print it out. And because I was just, if you don't know this about me, I put together a new planner every single month. So you can see this like collection of binders over here. And like for years, I've always been a planner girl, but for years, I would be very much about like the next new shiny thing. So I would be like, okay, I'm going to use this system. And then a couple months into the year, I'd be like, oh, but I kind of want to use a happy planner. And so then I would switch over to happy planner. And then a couple months later, I would be like, well, let's go to, I really wanted an Erin Condren, or I want to try this plum paper planner. And I just found myself like not actually using a planner to help me be more organized. And instead I was using a planner to, I don't know, just like shop. God, that sounds so stupid. But just because I wanted to buy the next new thing. And then I hit a point where I realized, okay, it is time to actually buy a planner or use a planner that I'm going to use for my main thing. But how can I keep myself from buying all the new things? And I still do actually buy other planners, mainly Erin Condren stuff that I love. But I do have one main system that's like my system. I put everything in it for sure. And that is my own system that I developed. It's called the HB90 system, and it always goes into an A5 binder. So this is a Kiki K planner. And this was actually the very first Kiki K binder that I had. And the way that I've gotten over the like switch system, new shiny stuff is I have decided, and I've been doing this now for about 2 years, to go and change up the way my planner looks every month. So I switch into a new binder. I put new dashboards and like pretty things in it every single month. But the system itself stays my like HB90 system. So long story short, I took some time. Usually I do it on the first of the month. So I took some time on June 1st and then again yesterday to set up my new planner, which I love it. It's very, it's beautiful and it's very summer-ish. But I use cardstock, like heavier paper cardstock, to create those dashboards in my planner. And so when I went to print out this thing to read today, it printed on this really heavy paper. And I just had to laugh because I was like, this is what my day has been like. I feel like nothing is going exactly the way that I wanted it to. So such is life. We'll see if we can adjust the lighting again. So long story short, yeah, I feel like I've been kind of all over the place. Kay Hicks says, have you tried TF publishing planners before? No, I haven't. I don't know if TF stands for something or if it's just that's what they are. I have not tried those. And I do get a lot of messages from, now that I have a channel where I review planners and talk about planners, sometimes I get a lot of people saying, oh, will you try my planner? Will you try my planner? And I've had to start saying no because I just don't have room for everything. Yeah, it's so funny. It's like a card. It's just insane. Oh no, Kelly said, I found out some devastating news and would appreciate prayers and vibes for my sister's physical and mental health. She miscarried. Oh no, I'm so sorry, Kelly. That is so difficult. Definitely sending prayers and thoughts. I know how difficult that is. Gosh, that's hard. I'm so, so sorry. Kiki K, Juliana, I love Kiki K. It is so beautiful. And I think that they are some of the best. Sorry. I'm having all kinds of problems today. I think they're one of the best binders out there. I love them. And this one, like I said, was the very first one that I bought all the way back in 2016. And I've used it quite a lot. I used it almost the entire year in 2016. And then also, have been using it off and on since then. So I'm excited to be back in it because it's such a bright color. It gives me good vibes. So, goodness, Kelly, I'm so sorry. Please send her all our love. Tell her we're thinking of her. And to everybody out there, I feel like I'm walking a little bit of a tightrope because it's like right now, as somebody going live or have a platform on social media, it's like you want to make sure that everybody knows that you love them, that they're safe in your space. But also I feel like that everyone is talking about the same issue. And while it is a valuable issue to discuss and it needs to be discussed, I think sometimes we also just need a place where we're not talking about it for a little bit. So, just know that if I'm not making the entire point of this all about that, then it's not because I don't care, but rather because I want to also serve you in providing, like I said on Monday, a place where you have, a safe place to come hang out where you can kind of take a breath for a little bit. Okay, so that being said, now that I have this card stock in my hand, I am going to read a scene. It is not going to be the next scene in order, but it's just going to be one of my most worked on scenes from the Death's Awakening book that I've been reading from. But we're also going to just kind of chat. I have my notes here, but it's kind of behind my microphone. We're going to chat a little bit as well about our favorite book series, because we're all book lovers. So what better thing to talk about than what books you've loved to read, what books you've read that have made a difference in your life. And, you can certainly share nonfiction, but definitely share fiction that you think people from this group will enjoy. Now, I know that there are actually some of you here that loved reading The Witch's Key that have messaged me and said, I never read YA, but I loved The Witch's Key. So some of you could definitely be telling me about what you normally read. If you don't normally read young adult fiction, what is it that you normally read? And did it surprise you that you enjoyed The Witch's Key, which is a young adult book? Because I'm really curious to hear about that as well. So let me know, first thing in the comments, let me know before we start listing favorites, let me know what your favorite genre is to read. Do you usually read young adult fiction, or do you mostly love to read, paranormal, like urban fantasy? Do you read, just anything, horror? What do you normally read? Or do you read across multiple genres? You just like to read lots of different things. Do you usually love reading romance? But I would love to know in the comments what your normal genre is. So Renee says, I read adult suspense and thriller. Do you have a favorite author? Let us know, Renee. And we're going to give plenty of time for people to share their favorites coming up. DF Tech Writer says, I normally read YA, but usually speculative, but have been enjoying the paranormal lately. Awesome. Yay, Callie just ordered The Witch's Key. So excited for you. I still just have the proof copy, and we're making a few little changes there as well on the proof. And then I'm going to order them en masse. I'm going to make a big order of all the paperbacks that I'll be signing, as well as the book plates. I think I've kind of landed on a design for the book plate. Let me see if I can go grab it real quick, because I left it over here. Kind of taking a little break there. So I showed you guys in the coven, those of you that are in the coven, we talked about doing a book plate, and I gave you guys some samples with a raven, some that was like more simple or whatever. But I think what I'm actually going to do is one that, I don't know how well this is going to show up with the lighting, but one that has my logo at the top, and then just has very, very lightly has a piece of the Beautiful Demons cover on it. The book plates are not going to be specific to the Witch's Key because it's cheaper for me to order like 1,000 at once, because if I order just like, I think I had something like 30 orders. If I order just 30, they're like 4 times more expensive for 30. And then I'm going to have to order more later anyway, because I want to be able to offer them. So I was thinking probably better to go ahead and just make one book plate that has a very subtle design on it. It's very, it kind of fades into the background, but you can see my logo on it, and then I can sign those rather than something. I can't really do something specific to the Witch's Key. So it needs to be something that'll work for all of my books. And I have a feeling most people that order the book plates in the future are going to be ordering them for the Shadow Demon Saga. So that's kind of where I am right now, but I'm still going to put a vote up in the group as well to make sure it's what people want. So we'll be voting on that soon. Okay, so moving up, Jean says, YA all the way. Emmy says, I read everything. Ninja Rebecca, I love that name, says, my favorite is adult fantasy, traditional and urban and paranormal. Renee says, I'll definitely read YA in middle grade also, but adult suspense and thrillers. Claire says, I read all the books. I love paranormal, MC, and RH. Yes, of course. And then let's see, Juliana, I read a little bit of everything. Amanda loves YA fantasy. I'm seeing lots of YA, which is good. Emmy says everything except zombies. Oh, Claire, the international giveaway was announced last Friday, and the winner was Ale Lau. So she will be getting her copy coming up soon. I just have to order all the copies first, but there will be some more giveaways. I'm going to order, there were 118, I think, orders, but I'm going to order like 150. And that way we will have more to give away as we move into the Witch's Key Part 2, which will probably be coming in July. So that's kind of where we stand right now. To be honest though, I'm trying so hard to get into Fate Surrender. And I know that it's like, I understand what I need to be writing and what I want to be writing. But at the same time, when the world becomes in chaos, it gets very difficult, I think, for all creators to sit down and step away from the world and think, okay, let me focus on my world now. Even though it could be cathartic to focus on your own things, it's like you feel like the world needs you right now and there's so much going on and you want to stay up to date and you want to help people. And so it gets very distracting. So I have not gotten as much work done in the last week as I wanted to. And that's just, it's just got to be okay. So Laura says, I'm not focused, but I do avoid things that are realistic violence. Yeah, I totally understand that. Favorite authors, Sydney Sheldon, Lisa Jewell, Ruth Ware. I just put like 3 Ruth Ware books on hold at the library with Libby. I don't know if you guys have been reading from the Libby app, but if you have a library that participates, there's an app called Libby that is connected to a lot of libraries, at least here in the United States, where you can get digital copies of books and audiobooks through that for free, like lending them from the library. So we've been doing a lot of that stuff for my son as it's been difficult to get out to bookstores and things like that. So it's been his first experience reading on a Kindle, and he's actually really liking it. So I think that's going to be something he will enjoy for years to come. It's his first kind of time. Gemma says, I read a lot of YA, all of Sarah's books, Mortal Instruments, Harry Potter, Twilight, Unfortunate Fairy Tales, the Walker Saga, the Rune series. Was that Edna that passed away? I think her name was Edna Walters or Edna. I can't remember. I never did read that series, but I have heard a lot of people talk about they loved that series, and then the author passed away, but I can't remember her name. So, okay. Yeah, Overdrive. I think Overdrive is maybe connected to Libby. Oh, yeah. So Guardians and all of those, we're definitely going to talk about those as well. I have those on my recommendations list today. Angela, thank you so much. She said, take care of yourself. We're not going anywhere. I know. I feel like I really want to get back in the swing of things, but I think it's also, we have to just give ourselves grace when things happen that you need to take a break, or if you need to focus on other people for a little while instead of yourself, and that's fine too. So let's move into, I had a feeling we were going to have kind of a smaller crowd today, and that's totally fine too, because I know that some people just really don't want to be online at all right now. Yes, it was amazing. Edna Walters rocked. Yes, I'm not sure what she passed away from, but I know I've heard a lot of people, because she was an indie author as well, I believe. And yeah, it's just devastating. I sometimes think about that in a morbid way of like, what would happen if I passed away before I finished this series? I think I would just like, I would be like, okay, I have to live just to finish this series. So devastating when an author dies before it finishes. It was a heart attack. Oh my gosh. So she didn't even know ahead of time. So with one of my recommendations today is The Wheel of Time. So if you like reading fantasy, I am still reading this series because it is so long and I don't always have time to invest in reading. And we've talked about this a little bit, that I don't always have a chance to get in and read when I'm working on a story, because sometimes if my brain is like being a writer, when I'm plotting stuff, I am always thinking about that story. So I have to be kind of immersed into it. So even if it's like, oh, I'm brushing my teeth, or I'm in the shower, or I'm, making dinner, I'm still always thinking about that story and what's going on with it. So if I'm reading something else and I'm thinking about that story, then I can't think about my own. So it just kind of depends. Sometimes I can read and be working on a story, and sometimes I can't. So with The Wheel of Time, it's particularly difficult because that story is so big and it's so engrossing. I tend to disappear into it, and it's not the kind of thing you could read in an afternoon. It's going to take you weeks to read, or if days without taking a break at all. So if you're looking for something that you probably could get from the library if you didn't want to buy it all, the Wheel of Time series is amazing. It's 13 books, and these books are like 300 to 600,000 words a piece. So in comparison, The Witch's Key was 80,000 words. So this is like 4 times as big as The Witch's Key, each book. And it's absolutely amazing. It's so, so good. And I am really looking forward to finishing it. George has finished it. Our daughter Evie is named after the character Nynaeve in this series, but I still haven't finished it. But the magic system is so good, and it's almost like a YA, even though it's epic fantasy and it's not labeled YA. The main characters at the beginning of the story are young adults. They're like 17 years old, and so 16, 17. And so you kind of see them growing up as they begin to take on a larger role in the world. It's so good. And I cannot wait to get to the next book. I'm almost halfway through the series, but like I said, it's taking me years to go through it because of that. But The Wheel of Time is definitely one that is on my list. If you would like to throw up some of your favorite books in the chat, please go ahead and start listing those as well. So I saw the Outlander series, and we can just make lists of things that we can maybe disappear into when things get a little bit heavy right now. Jennifer Armentrout, of course. Jennifer Armentrout is one of those authors too that writes across multiple genres. I think like sometimes she has things that are like aliens. Sometimes it's more like paranormal or urban fantasy. She has a contemporary romance series. So she writes lots of different things. So if you're a reader who likes to read across multiple genres, Jennifer Armentrout is a really good author to follow. Laura Thalassa, I have not heard of her. Bargainer series. Love the Fallen series by Lauren Kate. Yes, Kara, I love that one too as well. I read that one a long time ago. It feels like many years ago. So Outlander, Molly Harper, Smart and Funny. Wow, where do I start? Yes, I know the Aragon series. So is the Dragon series, Sylvia? My son, I think, got that series from my sister for Christmas. So my son, Andrew, that you guys know, of course, he is such a reader, and it makes me so happy. I'll tell you just a brief little story of our little genius, Andrew. He was like 3 years old, And we had been reading to him just like we do with Evie ever since before he was born. So we have been reading a book to Evie, and we did the same thing with Andrew from, the minute we found out we were pregnant, we would just read to my tummy. Even if they couldn't hear us, we're just always reading to them every single night. And so I think that like nightly reading and stuff, and he would read along with me and look at the books and everything else. But I didn't realize how much of it he was picking up. And one day I was picking him up from school because he was in like a Montessori daycare program when he was little, ever since he was 2. I was picking him up and we were driving by a Walgreens, and in the car, he turns around. He goes, "Look, mommy, buy your fare tickets here." And I was like, what is he talking about? I didn't even know what he was saying. And then I looked at the marquee, and that's what it says, to buy your fare tickets here. And I was like, is he 3 years old and he just read that? I have no idea. That can't be real. So then there were several things after that, within short succession, that he would look at it, and he would like, he had a little bear, and on the, like the foot of it, it said "My First Teddy." And he said, "Look, mommy, my first teddy was this my first teddy?" And I was like, oh my gosh, he is reading at 3 years old. So now, so he's young for his school age. So today was his last day of school. And he's still only 7, but now he's going into 3rd grade, but his birthday is coming up pretty soon. But he's already reading on a 5th and 6th grade level. So they had to put him in a special group at school. So reading is kind of his thing, which is very similar to what I was. Yeah. So Claire, my oldest, was reading Harry Potter at age 6. So yeah, Andrew has read the first Harry Potter book at school with his previous school. But Lena, you haven't gotten your invoice. Okay. All the invoices have been sent out. So if you haven't gotten it, it's possible it went to spam, but if you want to I'll write it down. The book plate and the paperback invoices are due on Friday. So if you ordered one and you haven't seen it, they all have been sent out as of last Friday or whatever day I was able to send those out. They've all been sent out. So if you haven't seen yours, it probably went to spam, or maybe something in the form was filled out incorrectly, for an email address was misspelled or something like that. So we need to definitely get it fixed so that you don't get it. Maybe a wrong mail address. Okay. So just message me, put an A instead of an M. Can you email me at sarah@sarahcannon.com? I'll put it up here. I can't type my own name. And just let me know what you're like, if you send it from that email, and I'll send it back to you and we'll get it done. So yeah, he's definitely a reader, and he has been reading the Aragon. He has the Aragon series, but he hasn't read it yet. He's been reading The Hobbit. We read now C.S. Lewis, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia. We read those together, except we haven't read the last, I think, 2 books. And then we read something else that we read together. Now I'm blanking, but now he's also got the Mysterious Benedict Society and some other ones that he's reading, but he's definitely a reader, and he loves to read. So Aragon is definitely one he's interested in. And you guys pay attention to the chat, because I know I'm not going to be able to call out every single thing, but there's some really, really good suggestions going in. So let's see, Adult Speculative, Oryx and Crake series by Margaret Atwood. I have not read that either. So Ellie Jordan Ghost Hunter is another really good series. I don't know, Christabel, have those been put into Kindle Unlimited or not? I know that if you have like some of those long series, if an author is in Kindle Unlimited and you have Kindle Unlimited, of course you can devour those books without having to pay extra for them. I think some of Shannon Mayer's books are in Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, so Ellie Jordan Ghost Hunter is by Brian B.Y. You guys, I think I'm so tired in my brain that I'm like losing people's names and everything. So Brian, my friend, he's my friend. We've been friends for years and years. And now J.L. Brian, thank you. So we have, he has this entire series that's like what I would call an episodic series about the same character, like in a different investigation each time. And those used to be wide, meaning they were at Apple and Barnes and Noble and everywhere. And I think he pulled them all and put them in Kindle Unlimited for now. So if you are in Kindle Unlimited, that is a very good suggestion. But if you read it like Apple, you won't be able to find those books. Hey, Team Moana, what'd you miss? Well, we're just talking about our favorite books and things like that. So feel free to add in your favorites. Rana says, you guys are so lucky. My children hate reading despite me reading to them when they were toddlers. They are now 12 and 13 and swear that reading is boring. You know, they may come around too, actually. You never know. I feel like my sister was not much of a reader when she was younger. And then somewhere about like 14, 15, 16, she got addicted to like Stephen King and horror books. And then from then on, she reads so many books now. Like my sister reads way more than I do. I bet she reads probably at least 100 books a year. And I don't get to that many. At most, I probably read 20 books a year. So yeah, I definitely can't read as many. See, Christabel says she didn't read as a teen, and now she's read well over 300 books that she has if you guys are ever looking for suggestions on what to read, if you're in the Coven, she does have a file in the file section, or it might be in the pinned post with over 300 books recommendation, which are really valuable if you want to go and check those out as well. Because then you know somebody in your group that loves my books has loved those, so you're more likely to read them. A Natural History of Dragons, I've never read that either. Okay, so it's in the pinned post and in the file section. Dean Koontz is another great author. Sylvia, I totally agree with that. So if you don't know Dean Koontz, he's another, like, similar to Stephen King, a lot of standalone books that are like horror type books or paranormal in some way. And I find that just about anything Dean Koontz, all you have to do is read like the first chapter and you're hooked to it. So I think that's another really good one. Carol says another MG fantasy that's wonderful is Brian Jacques Redwall series. Yeah, I haven't read that either. So The Fireman by Joe Hill, DF Tech Writer said. So a lot of people don't know that Joe Hill is actually Stephen King's son. He has written many books. I saw many of you mention Lock and Key on Netflix. That is written by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. And I think he specifically didn't use the last name King because he wanted to make a name for himself on his own merit rather than being like, hey, my dad is Stephen King. So I think that is something kind of cool. So he's got a lot of really good books as well. My sister keeps telling me I have to read that Nosferatu book, but I have not read it. I have it, but then I had a hard time getting into it, and I just need to like give myself a break to go start reading some things. So let's see, what else? I want to watch Lock and Key too. So Alyssa Rose Ivy was on my suggestions as well. If you're looking for some indie authors that have a lot of books, I believe her books are still wide, most of them, meaning that you can buy them even if you're at Apple and Google Play and Barnes and Noble and everywhere else. She has a lot of really good books that are, I think, in tone very similar to mine, even though hers have more romance in them typically. So she has a lot of books that are set in the same world. So you'll see multiple series set with the same characters. So if you like that kind of thing with multi series or characters based in the same world, you will probably really like her books as well. If you like YA, I got to shift this because my notes are over here. So let me know if it messed up the sound. So also another thing that I wanted to share, of course, is I saw Gemma mention, I think Gemma was the one who mentioned it too, is Lola Saintville. So she has, I think that's how you say her name. She has some amazing books that I would say are also kind of similar to mine. So it's the Guardian series, the Noru series, the Tauren. Are there more in that? It seems like maybe there's one more in that, but I can't remember if it's connected or not. But she is also an author of color. So if you really want to go out right now and support someone who is writing books that I know you'll love, who is also an author of color, she is definitely one to go and grab. And she has more than that too. She writes young adult paranormal, but she also writes books that are more adult as well. So definitely a great author to go and support. And I believe you can buy her books everywhere, though some of them may be in Kindle Unlimited. I'm not sure. Another one of my personal friends, if you enjoy reading indie authors and want to support indie authors that writes more urban fantasy and paranormal romance, is Danica Dark. She has multiple series. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any free books, but she does often run like a 99-cent first in series book. But since she's indie, I don't think any of her books are priced over $4.99, so they're all pretty affordable. But those are good, and that's another author that writes, like, she'll have her 7 series is paranormal romance, and it's a werewolf series, but then her crossbreed series and her Majiri series, they're more urban fantasy and less romance in them, but it's all set in the same world and you see the same characters over and over and stuff. So those are really fun. So it's spelled like Danica, Dannika, Danica Dark. And she's very good. Pretty much every book she writes hits the USA Today bestseller list because so many people love her books and they are really, really good. One of the things I love about Danica's books is that she is really good at planting little breadcrumbs. So if you go back and reread them, you'll see things even more that you didn't even realize. So it's like, oh yeah, let me do that. Let me do this. So yeah, the Crossbreed series is kind of her ongoing series right now that I think she's almost finished with, if I'm not incorrect there. And that's a really good like investigation series, and it's super, super good urban fantasy. Juliana Hager has awesome books. Yes. So I've not read her Fireheart Chronicles, but we do have a collaboration. Juliana Hagert, Jennifer Snyder and Alyssa Rose Ivy and I all did a series called the Willow Harbor series. So if you're interested in that, that's good. Dread Nation. I'm not sure who wrote Dread Nation. Ashley says M.L. Bullock is a friend of mine and she's also an indie author. So yeah, definitely. Everyone needs to post their favorite series if Sarah would be okay with that one, the cover, because y'all are post a lot and I'd love to check some out. So yeah, so we can put that in the coven too, where people can put links to their favorite books and series. Christabel, if you want to start that, you can, but I don't want to put too much on your plate if you're busy today, but otherwise I will also do it. Yeah, I want to read them. And I think I feel like I read some of the very first part of it and we were hanging out with each other. That's okay. I know Timana says, sorry, my son jumped on me. So that's why there's little typos. I feel like I'm becoming fluent in typo reading. So yeah, that's totally fine. Okay. So, you're just playing Sims. Okay. Well, if you have a moment and you want to put a thing up saying post links to your favorite group or favorite authors, that would be great. In general, it's like, because I think that a lot of people get nervous about sharing their favorite authors because they know that they're in a group that's my group. And so they don't want to step on my toes by sharing other things. And the truth is, I have absolutely no problem with people sharing their favorite authors in my group. The thing I would have trouble with is if someone who doesn't care about my books joined my group just to promote their own books. I would have a problem with that. But if you want to share, and if you are an author here, because I know some of you are, please feel free to share your own books as well, because it's just part of the community. I wanted to share another Black creator and author who is incredible, and her books are so amazing if you have not read them yet. And I don't know if I'm going to be pronouncing her name correctly, but her name is N.K. Jemisin, but I was introduced to her because a few years back, she won, I should have put these in the chat or in the description box, but I didn't get a chance. She won a Hugo Award, which is a very, very prestigious award that is usually mostly, to be honest, won by men because it's like science fiction and fantasy award. And so I happened to take notice of, oh my gosh, who's this woman that just like dominated? She won the Hugo Award, the Nebula Award, the Locus Award, like so many amazing awards. And I was like, I've got to check her out. And I was not disappointed. So if you get a chance to read, she has multiple series, but the series that got the most like accolades and stuff was a series called the Broken Earth series. So I have a tab open right now that I'm going to switch over to, and I'm just going to read you the blurb for book 1, which was called The Fifth Season. And the tagline is, every age must come to an end. So it says, this is the way the world ends again. 3 terrible things happen in a single day. As soon, and forgive my pronunciations because this is fantasy and I haven't listened to the audiobooks. As soon, a woman living an ordinary life in a small town comes home to find that her husband has brutally murdered their son and kidnapped their daughter. Meanwhile, mighty Sansa, the world-spanning empire whose innovations have been civilization's bedrock for 1,000 years, collapses as most of its citizens are murdered to serve a madman's vengeance. And worst of all, across the heart of the vast continent known as the Stillness, a great red rift has been torn into the heart of the earth, spewing ash enough to darken the sky for years or centuries. Now, Essun must pursue the wreckage of her family through a deadly, dying land. Without sunlight, clean water, or arable land, and with limited stockpiles of supplies, there will be war all across the Stillness, a battle royale of nations, not for power or territory, but simply for the basic resources necessary to get through the long, dark night. Essun does not care if the world falls apart around her. She'll break it herself if she must to save her daughter. So the first book is called The Fifth Season. The second book is called The Obelisk Gate. And the third book is called The Stone Sky. So I don't know if you guys can copy and paste from my comment here, but this is her website. And maybe that will link there. That is her website. And you'll find she also has another series called The 100,000 Kingdoms. And another interesting one, I think, my sister just recently read this and said it's amazing. I think this is one of her newest books, is The City We Became. And this one says 5 New Yorkers must come together to defend their city from an ancient evil in this stunning new novel by Hugo Award winner and New York Times bestselling author N.K. Jemisin. Every city has a soul. Some are ancient as myths and others are as new and destructive as children. New York City, she's got 6. But every city also has a dark side. A roiling ancient evil stirs in the halls of power, threatening to destroy the city and her 6 newborn avatars unless they can come together and stop it once and for all. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing, because it's like the idea of a city itself having a soul. I think that's really interesting, and it sounds kind of urban fantasy-like. So definitely an author to check out. So I'm definitely going to recommend her for sure. I have not read her other series, only the Broken Earth one, but it's incredible. I mean, it's just like, this is the kind of author that you read and you go, I know nothing, because she's so amazing. So I highly recommend her. Some of my other favorites that I just thought I would mention is The Hunger Games. Obviously, so many of us have read those, but I was curious to know if any of you have read the new book that came out. I have not had a chance to even pick this up because I've been so busy with the baby, but have any of you read the new Hunger Games series book? So I think it's a prequel, and just curious to know if anyone has read it and what you thought of it. Also, this is not paranormal or fantasy, but to me, it kind of has a feeling of it. And it's much more like, you can talk about like, oh, these epic fantasies. And then you get to this, it's like Pretty Little Liars series. I love the series on TV, but I also really loved the books. And they're very like drama, teen drama, just kind of brain candy type books. But I think they're so, so good. And the characters are really good. And I just think they're really good. So, just wanted to give a shout out to that series as well. If anyone wants Purse Dev books, Jen Sincero's, personal development. I'm like, Purse Dev, what is that? The Badass Trio. So You're a Badass at Making Money is definitely a really good one. I think that's the only one I've read. Finding Happy by Chad Neller, Design Your Dream Life, Visioneering, and The Miracle Morning. So those are some good personal development ones. I have to throw in there that I also love the book, Super Attractor by Gabby Bernstein. If you've ever been interested in learning about manifesting in your life, that is a book I've just recently finished, and it's really good. Laura says, I was so annoyed with myself for loving Pretty Little Liars. It was, as a teacher, it was all so wrong, and yet here I was caring. I know, it's just good writing, it makes you want to pull it in. Timo Anna says, I'd love to read the Last Kingdom books and The Magicians. So The Magicians is something that's close to my heart, and I really, really want to read the series, but my husband husband George has actually watched all of the Magicians that was available to watch. So on TV, it's so good, right? But there are books, obviously, and I know the books are very different from the television show. I've heard people say that, but I think that it's something I want to read. But it was only just a couple of years ago that I got an email from one of the producers on The Magicians and one of the writers and producers on The Magicians, and they were interested because they had fallen in love with the Shadow Demon saga, and they were interested in making it into a TV series, but it just didn't come together, and it just broke my heart because I wanted so badly, like, it could have been just like the Magicians, but so far that has not come to be. But oh well. Yes, we all know as well, Christabel for sure loves all of the Cassandra Clare books. So she just said, anybody wants Clockwork Angel first book in the Infernal Devices, I have an extra copy. So hit up Christabel if you're interested in that. I never finished Pretty Little Liars. I think I stopped with only half a series left. I know there were so many books and so many seasons of that series, and it just kind of went around in circles. And I think like so many series, it's like it was so good at the beginning, and then as far as television series went, it kind of felt to me like it started going in series later in circles later. So we'll see. But those are some of my suggestions. If you want to keep some of your other best suggestions going, then we can keep going on people's to read list. Percy Jackson books, the Maze Runner books were amazing. And then of course the movies that went along with them, I thought were really good. In the Garden trilogy by Nora Roberts is a paranormal romance. And let's see, I saw something else come through here and then I missed it. Oh, Divergent series. Yes. Divergent is so good too. I loved those. I feel like they just didn't do it justice with the movies. Anybody else feel that way? Of course, I feel like that with almost everyone, but anyway. I'm reading Deep Work by Cal Newport, same author as Digital Minimalism. Yes, Kathy, I actually liked that as well, but I felt like when I was reading Deep Work by Cal Newport, it was like, oh, this guy obviously is not a mother. It felt like it was very much coming from a male perspective, which is not to diss him anyway, but he's kind of talking about how if you need to, go away for 3 weeks to do your work. And I'm like, you can't leave your kids behind. But yeah, I have not read Digital Minimalism yet, but I do have it. I tend to read a lot of personal development and business books. So I try to always have one kind of personal development book going at the same time as I have, a fiction book going. So right now I need to read the next of the Wheel of Time series. But like I said, I'm having a hard time like diving into such a big book. But I want to read The Woman in the Window, which is the it's a book that's going to be turned into a movie. I think it probably already should have come out, but they might have pushed it back with Amy Adams in it. And it's about to come up on my library loan. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get it. Game of Thrones with cats. Oh, okay. I was like, what did I just miss here? Warrior Cats is an amazing series about feral cats who assemble in clans and wage wars against each other. The writing is amazing. Yes. So that's another library thing. So we were talking about the Libby app that we've kind of gotten addicted to going through, but banging on desk, read those pages. But we have reserved the first of the Warriors book because that's another one where it's like, where do you start? Because there's multiple series in that universe, and Andrew's interested in reading those. So we've got the first one on hold for him. And every time I just looked at it and it said it should be here in the next couple of days for him. So hopefully that'll be good. All right. So at the urging of LA Long, I will read these pages that are written. If you didn't come in, I accidentally printed them on cardstock. So this is not the first scene. If you've been around for the last couple of readings, I read a little bit out of order, but I've been reading from Death's Awakening just because we haven't moved on to the next story yet. But there's going to be a new prologue. I read a little bit of that last time. And then we've got the prologue with the witch. Then the very first actual chapter of the book is Parrish's first chapter, where she is kind of beating up these bullies who were bullying a kid in the courtyard. But skip forward. There are some scenes in between this, but I'm skipping forward to the first time that Parrish sees someone who is sick. So I'm just going to read this. It's only 4 pages, thank goodness. Otherwise, I would have wasted a bunch of my cardstock. So this is just, I don't title the chapters in this book because there are so many points of view. I left chapter names out of it and just decided instead to do 4 sturdy pages, just names of characters. So this chapter is just called Parrish. But if you would like to continue sharing some of your favorite books in the chat so that people can keep adding to their TBR pile, that would be great. All right. So Parrish stared at the woman by the buffet table. Her eyes were ringed with dark bruise-like circles. Her lips were dry and cracked. The woman looked like death warmed over, and she was coughing all over the shrimp cocktail. Parrish dropped her shrimp onto her full plate, then dumped it into the trash can and scanned the crowd. Standing near the back door, Madeline Sorrows looked straight at her. Crap. Eye contact. Parrish ducked behind a man in a blue suit, but she knew it was too late. Where in the world have you been? Her mother's voice had that talking through gritted teeth sound to it. Parrish shrugged. Talking to some friends, she said. A bold lie. Parrish never had friends over, and almost everyone at this party was middle-aged. You know how important tonight is, her mother said, already looking away, barely paying attention to her, as usual. Don't embarrass me, please. Parrish held her breath and her tongue. Why did her mother even want her out here? She would have been much more comfortable hiding in her room listening to music and playing video games than out here. Her mom had insisted she put on this stupid dress and uncomfortable heels and come out here to keep up the appearances of a happy family. But now that she was out here, she was an embarrassment. She couldn't win with this woman. Anger trickled through her, and she felt that tug, that familiar, rebellious pull that made her want to kick off her shoes and run screaming into the pool in front of everyone. What would her mother have to say then? But her mother had already turned her attention to a man Parrish recognized from Zoe's music lessons. Parrish stepped away before the awkward introductions began. She was going to scream if she had to hear one more person say, "Wow, I never realized Zoe had a sister," or "What instrument do you play, Parrish?" Having to explain just how little musical talent she possessed was never the highlight of her day. Being the firstborn child to a famous opera singer and a professional cellist, she was supposed to have been a musical genius. It was part of her birthright, or so everyone thought. By the time she was 6, her parents had ushered her to every kind of music lesson imaginable. Piano, violin, voice, even trumpet. The result was always the same. Parrish was no prodigy. So they tried again. And Zoe? Zoe was a different story. The clink of silver against glass sounded over the crowd, and gradually everyone turned their attention toward the back deck. Parrish moved to the back of the group and leaned against the wooden fence, watching. Her father stood on the deck with a glass of champagne in his hand and a wide, proud smile on his face. My wife and I would like to thank you all so much for coming tonight, he said. As most of you know, we are here to celebrate our daughter's amazing talent. Several people cheered, and her father slipped his arm around her mom with a smile. Tomorrow morning, Zoe and I will be flying out to New York City, where she will play a series of concerts with the New York Philharmonic. Then, in 2 weeks, we'll be heading to Paris for the start of her first European tour. Parrish crossed her arms as the crowd broke out in excited applause. Zoe stood beside their parents, a well-trained smile on her angelic face. Parrish swallowed back the bitter taste of jealousy and shifted her weight from one foot to the other. It wasn't Zoe's fault she was born to play the violin. This is a very important event for our family, and we are just so touched that you have all come out to see Zoe off, her mother said. As a special treat, her father continued, Zoe has prepared a piece just for this occasion. More gasps and cheers of delight. Parrish bit the inside of her bottom lip. If you would all make your way to the formal dining room, or living room, you'll see an intimate concert hall has been set up for you, her mother said with a laugh. She grabbed Zoe's hand and patted it. The concert will begin in just a few minutes. Everyone rushed toward the French doors, eager for the best seats. Parrish grabbed a discarded flute of champagne and disappeared into the shadows around the side of the house. She slipped out of her shoes and stepped into the cool, damp grass. It squished under her feet, climbing up between her sore toes as she made her way through the gate and onto the front lawn. She downed the champagne and tossed the plastic flute on the ground. Earlier, as they were setting things up, Parrish had cracked open the windows in the formal living room. Now she had a soft spot in the grass just below the open window and lay down, happy to be alone and away from the judgy eyes of her parents and their friends. Her long dark hair fanned out behind her. She spread her arms out to either side as though she was trying to make a snow angel in the green summer grass. It felt good to stretch out, to be herself without worrying what anyone thought of her. Parrish closed her eyes and breathed deep, waiting for the rich sounds of Zoe's violin to flow through the window and fill her up. Instead of music, she heard footsteps rustling through the grass. Parrish? She sat up so fast it made her vision blur. Her heart lifted into her throat and she tried to swallow it down. She blinked, a tall frame towering over her. Noah? He stepped forward into the light streaming from the porch, and Parrish's breath hitched in her chest. His hair was freshly washed, and damp blonde curls fell across his forehead. Hey, he said. He hooked his thumb toward Carmen's house next door. I was about to head over to Carmen's party, but I thought I saw you here in the grass. What are you doing out here in the dark? Parrish glanced over at the neighbor's house. Of course he was going to Carmen's. Parrish hadn't even had any idea Carmen was having a party tonight, and she certainly hadn't been invited. Not that she wanted to go anyway. Just then, the first clear sounds of her sister's violin streamed through the open windows. Parrish looked up at him, and he smiled. She motioned toward the window, then raised a single finger to her lips. There was something truly magical about the way Zoe played. How someone so small could do something so impossibly complex and beautiful was a complete mystery. It had to be a God-given talent. Zoe had been playing since she was just 5 years old, and she'd taken to the violin like a fish to water, as if the instrument was just an extension of herself. Parrish had never taken to anything like that. She expected Noah to head off toward the party, but instead, he sat down in the grass beside her. Close. Her heart beat faster. She stretched her legs out onto the grass and crossed one over the top of the other. She propped her hands against the grass to keep them from trembling. What was he still doing here? Did he need something from her? Or did he just want to hear Zoe play? Who is she playing for? He asked in a whisper. His eyes swept over the line of cars down her driveway and along the street. She nodded and picked at the skirt on her pink dress. She never wore pink. She was more a black kind of girl. Weird how a color could make someone feel so vulnerable. My parents invited all their music friends. It's sort of a going away thing for Zoe. She whispered back. She leaves on her world tour tomorrow afternoon. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that, he said. I bet you're really going to miss her. Parrish rolled her eyes and caught herself. She covered her mouth with her hand and immediately wished she could take it away. Noah narrowed his eyes at her. You're not going to miss her? Parrish ran her hand through her hair, then twirled a strand around her fingertip. It's not that, she said. She sighed. She hated telling people how she felt about her family. The older sister being jealous of the younger prodigy was so boring. She didn't want to be that person. It's complicated. Noah nodded. I understand. She turned to look at him, an eyebrow raised. You do? He shrugged. It's family. You're supposed to love them and hate them at the same time. A laugh escaped her lips, and she clamped her hand over her mouth again. Noah smiled and looked at her with those deep brown eyes that seemed to see right down into her soul. You have a nice laugh. A shiver ran through her body, and she looked away. The warm fingers of a blush crawled up her neck. He didn't look away, sending butterflies fluttering through Parrish's stomach. She bit her lower lip. She didn't like not being in control of her emotions. She liked it better when people kept a safe distance. She let herself fall back into the grass. Maybe if she pretended to be listening, he would leave. But he didn't. Instead, he lay down beside her. Together, they let the music of Zoe's violin wash over them. Parrish took a deep breath in, held it as long as she could, then slowly let it out, feeling her heartbeat finally calm as she sank deeper into the ground. She spread her fingers out across the spiked blades, willing herself to concentrate on the feel of the earth beneath her body instead of the boy beside her. His head turned toward her, the scent of his soap fresh in the air. She didn't dare turn toward him. She wanted to run away, to never feel like this again. But at the same time, she wanted to be someone else. She wanted to be the kind of girl who knew how to handle this. Noah's hand brushed against hers, and she sucked in a shallow breath. She froze and felt an unfamiliar warmth deep in her stomach. She was drawn to him. She wanted to turn to him. She wanted to know what it would feel like if he kissed her. "Parrish," he whispered. Her pulse racing out of control, she swallowed and turned her head toward him. Just as their eyes met, a loud groan sounded from the street. Noah jerked up and Parrish scuttled backwards, fear rising up in her chest. The sound scared the crap out of her. It was unnatural, pained. Her eyes quickly scanned the dark pockets of shadow in between the street lamps. From between two houses on the right, a man emerged, limping toward them. He groaned again and clutched his stomach. Noah stood and stepped in front of her, arms out as if trying to protect her. "Who is that?" he asked. "Do you recognize him?" Scrambling to her feet, Parrish peered around him and watched as the man moved closer. "No," she said, "I've never seen him before." The injured man had made it across the street, and just as he stepped onto Parrish's front lawn, he bent over and began to throw up. Parrish winced and turned away. She would have paid not to see that. Her stomach turned and she shuddered, but then she looked back at him again anyway, curiosity getting the better of her. "Should we go check on him?" she asked, taking a step forward. The man collapsed, then his body began to convulse. Parrish's eyes grew wide with fear. She took a step toward the man, but Noah reached out and locked his hand around her wrist. "Don't," he said. His mouth was tense and his grip was firm, serious. It scared her. With his free hand, he pulled his cell phone from his jeans. "I'm going to call an ambulance." She shook her head and looked back toward the man. "Shouldn't we try to help him?" Noah released her wrist. "I don't think you should go anywhere near him," he said. He glanced toward her house. "Go inside. Stay away from anyone who looks sick." The image of the woman near the shrimp bowl flashed through Parrish's mind. She swallowed hard. "What's going on?" Noah shook his head. "I'm not sure, but..." His words broke off and he put his mouth against the phone. "Yes, a man collapsed in front of my house. I think he's having some kind of seizure." He paused, then gave the address for Parrish's house. Parrish backed away but didn't go inside. What the hell was going on? Noah's dad was some kind of doctor, right? Was something going around? She crossed her arms in front of her chest and waited, but as soon as Noah hung up the phone, he made another call. "Dad?" That was all she heard before Noah sprinted toward the sick man. His body had stopped convulsing, but she couldn't tell if he was still breathing or not. Fear pulsed through her like fire, and she tapped her toes impatiently on the grass. Soon, the wail of sirens sounded in the distance. As the ambulance pulled up, Zoe's music stopped, and the guests from the party poured onto the front porch. "What's going on?" her father asked, coming up by her side. "I don't know," she said. "This man, he just appeared out of nowhere. He's really sick." Her father took off in a sprint toward the man's body, but Noah lifted his hand to her dad's chest and said something Parrish couldn't make out. Her father turned to look back at his guests, his face gone white as a sheet. He nodded at whatever Noah was saying, then jogged back toward the porch and started telling everyone to stay back. Parrish moved toward the shadows again, watching as the paramedics placed the man on a white-sheeted gurney and lifted him into the ambulance. They were wearing masks, and for some reason, the sight of it, mixed with the fear in Noah's eyes, kept her up for the rest of the night, unable to sleep. So, in terms of the storyline, we're not quite in this part. We're not quite to the end of Act 1. We're just getting into like kind of the starting of the inciting incident of like, not just like the characters starting to meet each other, but it's that feeling of like, wait a minute, maybe something's going on here that's out of the ordinary. So this was one of those scenes that I definitely wrote and rewrote and rewrote and rewrote. And in a few versions of this story, since I've told you guys that we've been through this so many times, like I went through so many different versions of this story. At one point, this was the opening scene of the book. And then I went back and kind of changed it a little bit. So definitely, I'm loving seeing some of these people saying, I want to go get it. Like I've told you guys before, you can certainly go and grab it on any of the major vendors, but you can also read it for free on Wattpad. And I think I have all of those links for you down below if you want to go and check it out. I am actively working on the third book, so hopefully that will be out before the end of the month. We'll have to wait and see kind of how it goes. We're going to play it by ear. It will be soon. If you guys can, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed it. I know we had a smaller crowd here today, but I was kind of expecting it with everything that's going on. Thank you all for showing up. We do have a little baby here if George wants to bring her over. You want to say hi? She's skipped her nap today. So just like mommy, she's tired. Are you tired, little girl? And she is 9 months old. Are you 9 months old? Are you looking at the microphone? Yeah, you want to grab it? Look up there. Look at Evie. Look at that girl. She wants to grab the microphone. She is 9 months old, you guys. It's so hard to believe. And actually in June this month, we will have been living in this house. This is just a rental house, but we've been living here for almost a year now. I think we moved in June 20th. So it's so crazy to me just how fast time flies. And thinking about a year ago, she was just still cooking in there, right? Yeah. Yeah. She's such a sweet little girl. 9 months in, 9 months out. Yep. She's so sweet. And she's pulling up on everything. And I think she's going to be walking soon. So yeah, she's definitely tired because you can kind of tell she's not as smiley today, but Jennifer says, that's so wild. I remember you announcing your pregnancy like it was yesterday. I know, it's so hard to believe. And I try not to think too much about time passing because then I start to panic and I'm like, okay, I am just going to like 100% try to be as present in the moment as I can. Oh no, Randa, my son walked at 9 months. Yeah, Andrew did not walk until like 13 and a half months. So he was over a year old, but this one is definitely going to be walking a lot faster because she's already like climbing the stairs. And Christabel walked at 9 months too. Yeah, some kids walk early, especially if they have an older sibling, I've heard. So, oh my goodness. Time is flying by, right? Yeah, I love you. So Friday, we will still continue to go live. So we'll just have a coffee chat. So if you have any questions, you can put those in the coven, or you can just show up and hang out with us on Friday with your favorite coffee beverage. I'm so excited to see more of you are starting to actually get your Sir Bean mugs and your t-shirts and everything. If you haven't gotten your t-shirts yet, just hang in there. I know they were coming from multiple different like warehouses and stuff. So hopefully they will come soon. And you can always reach out, and we can try to reach out to Teespring if you haven't seen anything about that. Yes. Laura says my Sir Bean mug just got here today. I mean, for some people, it's been like weeks and weeks of waiting. So I apologize, but I'm so glad that it's finally starting to arrive, and we'll just keep it going on Friday with another coffee chat. by Friday, before Friday, I will have a vote up. I've still been just kind of trying to think about what do I want to read in the group. So I'll have a vote up with a couple of different, maybe 3 different options of what we're going to read moving forward. So instead of just reading like pieces of scenes, we will read an actual story or short story type thing. So I will keep that. Christabel just posted the coffee chat post in the Coven. So if you have any questions you've been dying to ask, can be anything about like what's my favorite book or anything about, how we're going to be moving forward, what books are coming next, any questions about the Shadow Demon saga that aren't spoilers, whatever it is. If you want to ask any questions, feel free. Yes, her birthday is September 2nd. So she was due a week before that, but she went to a full 41 weeks. So she was a week late. But that's okay. She was waiting for that September birthstone, that beautiful sapphire. That's my thought. That aren't spoilers, LOL. Yeah, exactly. So, Christabel's birthday is the 4th. Oh, I don't think I realized that. Or if I did, I had forgotten. So, 6th and the 7th, Evie's abuelita she's George's mom, Nievelise. Her birthday is the 9th. So they both kind of almost share a birthday as well. So she's playing with my bracelets. You tell she's tired when she just can't stop like focusing in on one thing. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for continuing to join us. I'm sorry if my energy was a little bit lower today. I think probably a lot of us are kind of experiencing that low energy just because the world is a little bit heavy right now. But thank you for joining in. I hope that this got your mind off things for a little while. And hopefully now you are leaving with a really good to read list. Feel free to post some of those books that you want to share with other people in the Coven. And so Kelly said, is George Hispanic descent? Yes, he is Cuban. So, well, his mother's Cuban, his father is German. So he's half Cuban. So we got a little quarter Cuban baby. So his mother was born in Cuba and moved here in her 40s or 50s, or no, 30s or 40s, I mean. So, yes. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. We will be back on Friday. Hopefully everybody gets lots of rest. Take care of your mental health. Reach out if there's any way I can help you or support you. And I love you. And I'll see you guys on Friday. All right. Bye. Can you say bye? Yeah, there's a smile. Yeah. You see those 2 little teeth. All right, you guys. Bye. See you Friday.